Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we're going to be talking about what would happen if Deku was Yutas' reincarnation, aka if he basically just had his cursed energy. But, ladies and gentlemen, this video is going to be a bit different than my usual ones just because I straight up could not decide which path I wanted Deku to go on. I wanted him to be a hero and a villain at the same time, but not a vigilante. So I decided on a different course of action. Today, there's going to be two different timelines, and you, the community, are going to get to decide what happens. Are we going to get option A, hero Deku, or option B, villain Deku? Your guys' vote down below in the comments is going to matter so much. And remember, leave a like on the video because if not, I get very sad. So with all my yapping out of the way, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy. We begin our story off with the hero path. In this specific timeline, I'm going to be making two specific changes to the story. Number one, we're going to be adding another character to the story, obviously Rika. I was thinking of potentially like maybe gender bending Bakugo or something like that, where Bakugo was a girl and, you know, he ended up dying in some tragic like accident, maybe like a car hit him or something like that. But as I thought about that, I was like, okay, but then we have no Bakugo in the story, which is like, you know, it's fine for beginning My Hero Academia, but if I'm being honest, Bakugo was straight up one of my favorite characters. So I ended up deciding against that, and instead I ended up incorporating Rika as a third character, and that's what this entire story is going to be about, right? So just to start everything off, let's first establish the fact that yes, Izuku is going to be quirkless in this timeline, and yes, Bakugo is going to be friends with Izuku and Rika. Now, what I pretty much want to set up is just to give you guys an idea of what Izuku's relationship with her is going to be, is that they're all going to be friends, right? Now, Bakugo obviously is going to be having that personality of being outgoing, being strong, and being like really eccentric, being like, you know, like a tough guy, you know what I mean? And then we obviously got sweet Izuku, who's nothing but nice. And, you know, Rika in this specific timeline is always going to be kind of like sick, but she's going to be like really pretty in this timeline, right? Let's just say that in this specific timeline, she's going to be a girl with white hair, golden eyes, like her eyes are going to be like gold colored. And she's pretty much going to be, you know, Bakugo's childhood crush as well as Izuku's a little bit. The thing with Izuku is that because, you know, he kind of knows that she's Bakugo's crush, he kind of just like never like does anything about it. Just being sweet, wanting, you know, like understanding that, you know, he likes her, but his best friend likes her too. So, you know, he kind of just thinks to himself like, you know, Bakugo could have her, you know, he's cooler than I am, you know, she'll be happier with him. But point is, eventually the day would come when Izuku would be told the bad news. Now, Izuku in this specific timeline is going to be told he's quirkless. And well, Rika, she's also going to be quirkless. Thing is that before they all used to be great friends, but after Bakugo discovered that he had a quirk, he started changing, being a lot more cocky, beginning to push people down and treating Izuku, well, a lot differently. And honestly, Rika didn't really like that. I mean, at the beginning, she really did like Izuku more just because of his timid and nice sweetheart personality. I mean, like, for once, nice guys don't finish last, but in this specific timeline, you know, they're, you know, not going to finish last. Anyways, point being, she's also quirkless, and what pretty much ends up happening is that Deku, you know, once he ends up being discovered quirkless, Bakugo's going to start being meaner to him. Rika noticing that, you know, like, you know, her not telling anybody that she's quirkless quite yet would be like, Bakugo, leave him alone. And he's all like, what? He's a quirkless Deku. Like, we shouldn't even hang out with him anymore. Like, come on, Rika. And he grabs her by the hand and she just pulls away. She's like, no, I'm quirkless too. You gonna bully me next? And then Bakugo looking at her would be like, and like he's just like trying to figure out the words to like express himself, like say like, you know, like that's not the case. Like he was thinking to himself like, oh, he feels bad now because like now Rika's gonna think of him as like just putting down all quirkless people. So Bakugo genuinely just like, he's sort of having like a bit of a change of heart. But right after that happens, she straight up grabs Izuku and they would make their way towards the playground. They would just start hanging out together. Right as all this would be happening, both Izuku and Rika would begin hanging out more and more, and you know, she's still not going to die yet, obviously, but more time would pass, more months would go by, and eventually they would pretty much cut Bakugo off entirely. Bakugo would sort of stay away from Izuku and Rika, but he would still want to talk to her, and you know, it's not like she's going to be mean to him, but she's just going to like hang out with him less and less, and Bakugo's going to become extremely jealous of Deku, like very jealous. Like imagine like, I know we've all been there where we've had like childhood crushes who like going to school felt good just because like you got to see your childhood crush, obviously. And, you know, being a little kid, that's like mainly the only reason that like you want to go to school. Also, you know, your friends. But point being, yeah, Deku kind of has taken his girl, not really, because it's not his girl, but point being, eventually they become really, really close, and Rika eventually develops feelings for Izuku. This would ultimately culminate to her pretty much giving Deku a ring, right? Being like, hey Izuku, when we grow up, can you promise we'll get married? And like Deku just like looks at her and he's like, what? Rika, like we're just kids, he's all shy and he's super flustered. Just like Izuku would be like, we know Yuta in the original was like, yeah, but this Deku would like not really give a straight answer, just being super red. And she's like, it's okay if you're nervous. I really like you, Deku. And he looks at her and he's like, I will, like yes. And he's like, you're like, no, I don't think he would say something like that because he's a little kid. But point being, Izuku would just be so happy. And that's all I can really say. After having like an amazing day at the park and they're both just hanging out, just kids literally being kids, right? Eventually a hero attack, like a villain attack, would take place nearby. And unfortunately for Izuku, this specific villain would end up throwing an attack towards the hero, which he would end up dodging. And this attack proceeds to straight up vaporize Rika, leaving nothing but her, literally, no, not vaporizing her, because I feel like that's too brutal. It would kill her basically. Just upon a contact, the attack just kills Rika, and she falls on the ground looking to this villain that just did that to her, as he just stares at her dumbfounded, just like, Rika, like he screams out and he's like crying and stuff like that. And in this moment, we would just have Bakugo like making his way towards the park, like going over there. He was about to like apologize to Izuku and her and be like, like, I'm sorry, like trying to get closer to them, realizing, like maybe he was wrong. But when this dude sees what happened, everything just goes silent. It's like everything goes dark. And mind you, like this is kind of a sad story for like hero Deku, but the point is that we would sort of get that Rika like backstory where the main motivation for Izuku to become a hero is obviously his obsession for All Might, but it's secondly going to be the fact that he just saw a villain kill his literally like his best friend, like the person that he like had a crush on as a little kid, and he wants to make sure that this never happens to anyone else. So we're pretty much just going to be fast forwarding through the next couple of years after this event happens. We obviously get a funeral, Bakugo's there, Izuku's there as well. And what pretty much takes place during this funeral is like, we would sort of get this moment where Deku and Bakugo just like, they stay away from each other. Bakugo would ask him one thing, like, what were her last words? And Deku not wanting to like tell him what they really were, of like, oh, she wanted to literally like marry me and like she likes me, would just be like, she just said like something along the lines of she had fun and like something like that, and she can't wait to like see what the future holds. And Bakugo hearing that, he just like looks down, he's like, okay, and he just like leaves Deku alone. But for all these years he just resents him, but he just leaves him alone because of Rika. Eventually though, Izuku would finally end up making it publicly known that he kind of, wants to become a hero after we get the first episode's events. Like Deku at this point has mostly moved on, but there is one thing that Deku is sort of like trying to hide from others, and that is Rika. Because of the fact that like, it's not something that's just going to be completely hidden and he's never going to find out until the specific day. No, Deku's going to know of Rika, and this would pretty much lead to Izuku like sort of staying away from people. All these negative emotions would end up bottling up into a bunch of cursed energy, and Deku he's going to be having the same exact cursed energy levels as Yuta, and this would pretty much end up leading into a scenario which is pretty interesting, where it's like Deku would have one specific moment where like he sees Rika for the first time, and this would be during the funeral, right? Which would pretty much lead to Izuku being like, Rika, is that you? And like she just says something like, I love you, Izuku. And like Deku's just scared. He's like, please, like what happened to you? Like he's trying to figure it out, and he's like, go away, and Rika's just sad, so like she disappears and something like that. And Deku just like only has moments where he'll see her like every now and then, and like she hasn't destroyed anything yet, but it's like something that could happen. And there would even be one time where Bakugo was like straight up bullying Deku, like just telling him things, and Rika would like be trying to appear. So Deku just straight up runs out of there as fast as possible, just like crying, being like, Rika, please. Obviously Bakugo's like just left in the classroom and he doesn't hear this, but this would all eventually end up culminating in the day where Izuku would finally be bullied by Bakugo, and Bakugo finally would tell Izuku to straight up kill himself, saying, why don't you take a swan dive off the roof, you quirkless loser? Maybe in your next life you'll be born with a quirk. And then Deku would like just feel awful. He looks at Bakugo and Bakugo just turns to him and goes, what, you want me to kill you, Deku? After saying that, Rika immediately appears, and Deku, seeing Rika, would be like, Rika, no. But right as that happens, one of Bakugo's friends would get punched into the wall, just instantly knocked out, blood leaking from their mouths as their eyes went fully white. And then Bakugo looks back up towards the direction of Izuku, like only to see that Deku was like there, like trying to grasp at air, but he was really trying to grab Rika, stop her somehow. But Rika proceeds to smack the other kid into the wall and then finally hit Bakugo, sending him crashing into the wall as he coughs out blood and goes, damn it, Deku, what was that? You have a quirk or something? As Deku looks towards the direction of Bakugo and just goes, Bakugo, run, run, run now. And Bakugo, like seeing this, he's like, what are you on about? He gets hit again, and Deku just finally says it again, Rika, stop it. After Bakugo hears that, he's like, what did you just say? How dare, like he just gets up and he's like, Izuku, don't use that name. She's dead. And then like as that happens, Rika finally stops. And like Bakugo says something like, don't disrespect her name. And like he goes rushing towards Izuku, but Rika blocks the explosion, just pushing Bakugo back and knocking him out. So all of them, none of them got killed. Two of them were brought to the like emergency hospital, you know, and Bakugo got knocked out really, really badly. So now Bakugo's like, okay, like what the heck happened? But Deku, after that happens, just straight up runs home. Like he maybe would take the path of the sludge villain, but what I can see pretty much happening is if he does is once Deku is at like death's door, Rika just destroys the sludge villain, and as soon as Deku's free, he just runs home, like as All Might comes out of the sewage just to see like a scene of the sludge villain splattered everywhere, wondering who did this, seeing claw marks and like fists engraved in the ground. Like it looks like a brutal scene, like something just destroyed the sludge villain. And the sludge villain doesn't even know what happened. He just knows that green-haired kid did it. So, you know, All Might wouldn't even hear about any of that. And so we don't get the Bakugo explosion situation or anything like that. Instead, we get Izuku going home and just being scared. He's so scared of his power. He doesn't know what to do. And he finally just sits down in his room as Rika asks him, you know, like why he's like why is he so scared of her? And he says, all I want to do is become a hero, but I'm so scared of using you because I'm scared you're going to kill someone. And like Rika hearing that would be like, I won't kill someone, you know, like just telling that to Deku as you know, Rika just goes, I'll help you become a hero. You know, as Deku hearing that would be like, you will? And she just goes, yeah. I love you, Deku. As you know, Deku hearing that would think to himself that maybe he can use Rika. As for the following like next 10 months, Deku just pretty much focuses on training himself. You guys know how Yuta like used the sword and stuff like that? Instead of that, because Deku's not going to have a Gojo or a Jujutsu Kaisen Academy or anything like that, he's just going to be working on his physical body, cleaning up Dagoma Beach, and on one occasion Izuku would actually use Rika, but Rika just proceeded to destroy a bunch of the rubble there that was there like at Deku's training ground. So ultimately Deku decided not to use her unless absolutely necessary, which ultimately brings us to the day of the UA entrance exam. And as for the entrance exam, what I can pretty much see happening is Deku goes in, he takes the written portion. I don't see him stumbling because of Bakugo, because instead of being scared of Bakugo, he feels bad at what happened, like what he did to Bakugo, you know what I mean? So he doesn't get scared, he doesn't get flustered, nothing like that. Like he really does like think like with the training he's done, he's like sort of confident in his own like abilities, like wanting to become a hero by his means. Like he knows he has Rika, so he knows like if anything like he can protect himself. He's just scared about like What if one day Rika takes it too far or something like that? And so what I ultimately see happening is during the physical portion of everything, you know how in the original Deku was just like unable to use one for all and he was just looking around for robot points, anything? Deku has that exact same thing happen where he just chokes. Like he's unable to destroy a single robot, and ultimately Deku would find himself in a moment where he's desperately searching for points, eventually seeing one pointer that he would rush towards, being super scared, like not knowing how in the world he's gonna defeat this thing, until finally he would hear screams coming from the distance saying, "Help, help!" And obviously that would be Araka. This would be Deku's cue to like look up only to see the 0 pointer and be terrified. But Deku's body, it just moves. I mean, this dude has the heart of a hero, so he would rush there as fast as humanly possible, and upon arriving towards Araka, he would try to lift the rubble off of her, realizing that, you know, like he could because Araka's helping him. Eventually Izuku standing face to face like with Araka, having like barely helped her up, the 0 pointer would be right there and it would be about to crush them. So Nezu, you know, obviously watching all this would be thinking to turn off the 0 pointer, but right before he could actually press the button, some invisible force or object or something would end up appearing out of nowhere, which would be Rika defending Deku, and like it would destroy the 0 pointer. Now Rika Deku did try to call out to Rika, being like, "Rika, come out, like help me save her." But Rika, because it was a girl, was like, "No, like I won't help you," you know what I mean? But because Deku's life was now actively in danger, Rika ended up coming out and saving both Izuku and Araka, as the 0 pointer was absolutely destroyed, like shredded to pieces, and all the heroes and villains watching this would just be stunned, like how did that happen? Like what quirk does this kid have? Only to look at his records and seeing that it says quirkless. After reading this, Principal Nezu would actually end up pretty much like thinking to himself like he has to like figure out what this kid's quirk is one way or another. But ultimately after this happens, Uraraka would thank Izuku, and Izuku can sort of see like that Rika was like kind of upset at Izuku talking to a girl, you know, kind of like how Rika was upset at him like helping Maki and stuff like that. But ultimately like Izuku runs away from Araka as fast as possible, just ignoring her so she doesn't get hurt. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the conclusion to Hero Path Deku. In this timeline, Deku's going to be going through all the trials, figuring out how to use Rika, using the incredible powers and the fact that no one can literally see her spirits to straight up basically have limbo, like what Madara uses in the Naruto verse, where like no one can see what's happening, and just going on a learn to become a hero, going through the same adventures that we get in the My Hero Academia timeline, and seeing how Izuku would handle all of this. And now we can begin My Villain Academia, which would all begin at the same exact place that Rika died. Unfortunately for this timeline, however, a specific hero being Death Arms, who I think is the one, like the dude who has like the construction worker like hero costume, and he's like super buff. He's in like the first episode of My Hero Academia. A villain attack would go down, and so dude picks up a car. Like I don't know if you guys have seen those memes where it's like, Pav, you just gotta work, and then a hero literally grabs your car, throws it at a villain, and misses. Like I don't know if you guys have seen something like that, but that's exactly what happens here. This hero proceeds to grab like a heavy object. I don't know if Death Arms could take a car, maybe like a smaller car. He picks it up and throws it at the villain, but unintentionally, because he ends up missing and the villain dodges out of the way, it would go hitting Rika, killing her upon impact. And as that happens, like Deku watched all of this play out in borderline slow motion, just looking towards the direction of this hero who practically just killed his best friend. Deku's just like, he's left without words. In this moment, Deku's just like, he's heartbroken. The heroes who he's idolized his entire life are the ones responsible for the death of his like basically future fiance and best friend. And this would crush Izuku Midoriya, leaving him without words. He just doesn't know what to do. He does know one thing. He hates heroes. And so for the following next couple of years, Izuku just grows up being shy, quiet, as everybody just picks on him, beating him down when he's already on the ground. Like Deku goes on to have the same life that he has in the original. So it's not like no one like physically like beats on him or something like that, but it's just like they bully him like with words, which is sort of the impression that I get. Like I feel like Rika's there for defensive purposes. Like if someone's genuinely trying to like harm this dude, like Rika's going to appear. Like if they're trying to like kill him, right? But unless like it's like something else and it's like normal bullying, I don't think Rika's gonna come out and just start killing everybody, right? Or at least not in this specific timeline. And so what would pretty much end up taking place for the villain path Izuku is what we have happen is a bad timing events pretty much taking place, because what's going to happen is that same exact thing that we just covered in the hero path, where it's the first day of the hero society. Izuku, as he's making his way to school, I don't know if you guys remember the first episode, but he saw a hero like thing going down, and Izuku still would like be writing things down about heroes, because deep down Deku wants to become a hero, but to be a real hero, not to be a fake one like these fakies, right? Kind of having like that sort of stain ideology. So Deku would be watching this and realizing like Mount Lady only did all of that to get attention and for all these people to look at her a certain way. Not only that, but she had no shame. She was literally posing so all these people could like take lewd pictures of her. So Izuku seeing that just kind of like goes like, another fake hero, as he would make his way to school. And on this particular day of school, Izuku would be called out by the teacher, as everybody finds out that Izuku wants to go to UA High. As you know, Bakugo hearing that, like in the original, he proceeds to straight up blow an explosion at Deku, and Deku just gets up and like, Bakugo, leave me alone. You know what I mean? Like Deku's a little different than the one that we have in the original, just being like really shy. No, he'd still be shy and like have the same reaction actually. So he's still like, Bakugo, I'm sorry, I just wanted to like see what it would be like to be a hero, you know what I mean? But like internally he'd be like, I hate you, Bakugo. As what would pretty much end up taking place is after class would be over and Izuku would be writing down notes about Mount Lady and how she's a fake hero, her pros and cons, pretty much listing only cons and her only pro being her quirk. After Deku does that, Bakugo would enter the classroom grabbing his notebook as he explodes it in his hands, and Deku just watches as like, this time it's not just a burnt notebook, but it's just blown up. Deku seeing that would just like, he's just like, why? Just like looking at Bakugo, not even like, look, he's just looking at the ground actually, not looking up. And Bakugo's like, because you have no right to write anything down about being a hero. You should get those dumb ideas out of your head. You're only gonna get yourself killed. But hey, maybe if you swan dive off the roof, you'll be reincarnated with a quirk in your next life, huh, loser? As you know, after Deku hears that, Deku just like looks at Bakugo with such anger in his eyes, not being able to hold back his real feelings, as Bakugo goes, what? You want to do something about it, you quirkless loser? And Deku, you know, hearing that, he just like, he like almost doesn't, he like, no, he would back down actually. He backs down and he's like, no, but before he could even be like back down, like fully like take it back, Bakugo just throws a full-on explosion at Deku's face, which would actually leave him like a scar like burning marks, like not third degree burns, but just some burns that will heal, you know. He would fall onto the ground, and as soon as this happens, Rika comes out, which pretty much leads to Bakugo and all of his friends being torn to shreds. The screen would pan black as Izuku would be left there crying as the dead body of Bakugo and the two friends are shoved into the locker. After this happens, Izuku would run out of the school as fast as he possibly can, being terrified of what just happened, and because there's no cameras and stuff, it's not found out that Izuku was actually the culprit. Also, how could it be some weak, quirkless, timid kid? That's the thing. No one would suspect weak old quirkless Izuku. And so Izuku would make his way towards the tunnel, eventually running into the sludge villain, who would be torn to shreds immediately by Rika, ultimately making his way home, where Izuku would start to just have so many thoughts about what went down. Bakugo's dead. He's responsible for that. He doesn't like Bakugo, and maybe he's bullied him his whole life, but he killed him. He killed Bakugo. He just can't get it out of his mind, to the point where as months go by and Izuku's like trying to just be normal, he's literally dying inside, trying to like make it make sense to himself. Like, why did I do it? Like trying to rationalize it in his mind. Eventually just coming to the rationalization that it was Bakugo's fault. Bakugo's just another one of those fake heroes. It's his fault he's dead. He deserved it. Yeah, after all, he did bully him all his life. Plus, if Bakugo grew up, he was just gonna grow up to be a fake hero, right? And that's what Izuku would tell himself, eventually realizing that or sort of just telling himself that he can't be a hero. He just killed someone. And Izuku realizes that if he can't be a hero because society rejects him and no one believes in him and no one's giving him any shot, not even his mom, not he doesn't even have friends, bro. Rika's not there. Izuku just kind of gives into despair, deciding that you know what, if I can't be a hero, I'll at least try to be a normal person. So Deku gives that a try, trying to go find jobs at different specific places, but they all turn him down. Izuku realizes that this world really is so prejudiced against quirkless people, but what they don't know is that Izuku isn't entirely weak. And eventually, it would all culminate to the day where Izuku would actually end up making his way towards one of his favorite events that he, actually gotten tickets for a year prior. HeroCon, which is sort of like Anime Con, where a bunch of heroes get together and they answer a bunch of questions of fanboys and stuff like that, and they give out signatures. Two of the specific heroes that were on stage next were actually Mount Lady and Death Arms, which pretty much leads to Deku being there in the back as so much rage begins to well up within Izuku, just gritting his teeth as he thinks he's the one who killed her. I can't believe you killed her. It's your fault. It's your fault. If you hadn't killed her, I never would have had this happen to me. And Izuku's just having so many negative emotions that it eventually ends up pretty much summoning Rika, as Izuku just watches as Rika rushes Death Arms and Mount Lady, who Izuku had a disdain for, and proceeds to rip them apart in front of everybody. Just picture this. Izuku was at this anime con, and as they were answering questions and everything was going just fine, out of nowhere, Mount Lady literally gets ripped in half by an invisible arm that just clawed her, as Death Arms, sitting there seeing this happen, would immediately get on guard, only to be punched in the stomach, leaving the imprint of a fist there, as his face literally gets ripped off. And it would just be such a gory scene that the people in the front would have blood splatter on their faces, as you would just hear the screams of all the people going, "What? What's going on?" They're all scared. And Izuku, for a slight second, would just have a smile on his face, as suddenly realizing that if anybody notices this, they're gonna suspect it's him. So he quickly goes back to his timid, shy personality, as Deku just goes on to act like he's so scared, rushing out of the building, as he finally makes his way towards an alleyway all alone, where Izuku can finally be with himself, Rika, and his thoughts. And he would just think to himself that he loved that feeling. For the second time in his life, Izuku felt power, and this time he killed the person who was responsible for the death of Rika, and a fake hero, someone who he knows doesn't deserve the mantle of a hero, someone exactly like Death Arms. As from here, Deku just smiles and he thinks to himself that he won't be a hero, but what he is gonna be is someone who cleans up this society, someone who changes everything, someone who gets rid of all the fake heroes in the world, just like Stain.
Hey, you made it to the end of the video! Like it or die!
That wasn't the line, Kachan!
Whatever!